you so much for doing this. We are so grateful for you taking the time. Part of what we're trying to do is we want to let everybody in the church know more about some of the most important people who are a part of Georgetown Baptist. And when we think about the people who are most important to Georgetown Baptist, you're one of the names that's right at the top of the list. And so tell me a little bit, because you were telling me before, you've been here longer than anybody else. Is that right?
I think I've been a member, attended this church longer than anybody else. I was baptized when I was in the 5th grade, so that meant I was 12 years old, either 11 or 12. And this is 2025. Now, there were 2 years. My first wife was a minister of music at Midway, and I went over there for 2 years. And when Allison came along, it got too much to be going over doing practice and everything, and we came back here. And except for those 2 years, I've been coming here even before I was baptized, naturally.
Oh, yeah.
Skiles was a minister. I don't know if our history goes back that far.
It does. Yeah. That's, so do you remember what year that was that you were baptized?
Well, it would have been, I was born in 36, so it'd have been 47 or 48.
Wow.
Yeah, after the war.
Yeah. Well, so tell me a little bit about the years. Just talk a little bit about yourself. When you meet somebody new and they want to know about you, what do you tell them?
Well, there's a lot of things I could tell them, but I don't know I want them to. But, well, I talk about the church, and of course I went here all that time, and things that people may not know. The Sunday school part that we've got right now wasn't even here, and I was in Sunday school there, and every Sunday the one that was running the Sunday school class before we went into class, they'd ask us to bring a dime apiece to help pay for it, and that was part of it. But Georgetown Baptist College, the college used to be Georgetown Baptist College, and most of the people there were studying for the ministry, where the preachers, or well, my first wife, she was a music person and did that. And on Sunday morning when college started, there would be 100 students join the church, and some of them would join, and some would be what they call watch care. Mm-hmm. But they were do everything but vote. But it was a big thing then, and the building has changed so much. The console for the organ used to be up on the platform, and the lady that played it had her back to the audience. And of course, I ushered back then, and when we were supposed to come down, she'd close the book, and that meant come on down. But one of the things that I really take pride in is I've probably ushered here 60 years, and I don't call it ushering anymore, but we used to have to seat people, and now I just call it greeting people. And I really love doing it, and started when I was in high school, and did it, and you had to seat people because there were so many people, and most of them were college students. I mean, they would come, I don't know how many, 100 plus, and we had 2 services, and it was a busy time. And but another thing that people may not know, and it's extremely interesting, I think, is the number of missions that Georgetown Baptist started. And one of them was Gano. It was a mission. Mallard Point was a mission. The big church in Lexington started out as a small church on US 25. It was Highland Baptist, and now it's one of the bigger churches in Lexington. But Royal Spring, I don't know how big it is, but it's not big, but it's there.
Yeah.
And those are things that I guess it's in the history books, but things that happened in my lifetime. And that's just a few of the things that changed that over the years. Different, but certainly not better.
Sure. You talk about being a greeter, an usher for 60 years. To do something that long, it must have some deep meaning for you. What does it mean for you to be able to do that, to serve in that kind of way?
Well, the best thing, and it's different today than back when I was in high school, and but I love meeting the people that are in the first service. And I was thinking, when you talk to me about coming down here, what's the most important thing right now in the life of us old folks is that time. And a couple of things that really stand out. My first wife, she had dementia, but I still ushered, and she sat back there, and I'd keep an eye on her. And it wasn't long before some lady came back and sat down beside her. And
that made all the difference, didn't it? Those connections, those relationships.
And there's some, since you've been here, that their spouses have passed away. I noticed a gentleman that spouse had passed away, and I looked up first Sunday back, and one of the older people went over and sat down beside him. Yeah. And those are things that that's what it means. And one of the things, little things that stand out, and it's very little, but years ago, my dad's been dead 45 years, and the preacher used to have the ushers say the prayer, and it called on me. One of the things I thanked the Lord for was the church, and for my dad, who had meant so much, and for Jesus, who died for us. And as I'm walking up the aisle, a guy grabs my arm. Didn't say a word. And that meant, he touched me. And those were memories that really stick out in my mind. And things from my family. The bell car, when it started, was 5 Lusbys in it. There's still 4 or 5. Hannah's back, and she will be ringing the bell. And but that's a big part. And Barbara, singing in the choir. And my children were married in this church. My funerals of family were services were here. And it's just, it's been a part of my life. And ushering has been a part of it. Of course, I taught Sunday school for 30 years. And but it's been a big part of my life. And lived to be 89, so I think I've probably been here been a member longer, because I've joined when it's just 11 or 12 years old. And one of the things, how I remember that is crazy, but it's true. I was in the 5th grade, and I went to school on Monday, and the teacher pointed out and said how proud she was of me. Now, you get in trouble now if you did that, probably. But Miss Armstrong, and I never forgot her saying that all these years. But it's little things like the guy grabbing my arm, or her saying that, that's been a part of my life here. And the things, like I say, the college being so big, and giving my dime every Sunday to help build that room, and something that don't amount to anything, but I painted the outside of this church twice. I know my dad had the contract the first time, and I worked for him.
So when would that have been?
Oh gosh, my dad was living, it had been 50 years ago. And then, well, I painted in the summer when I was in the school business, principal, and we were off in the summer, and I painted, had the contract. You had to bid on it. And my dad, there was more than we could handle. And he said, I'm coming back down there and help you boys. It was just 2 of us. And when we finally got done sitting out there on the steps, he said, don't ever take another job like this. And I said, don't worry, you don't have to tell me. It took us forever, just 2 people. And but those are memories that I have here that never, as long as I'm living, I'll not forget.
Well, you've already mentioned them a little bit, but tell us just in a little bit more detail about your family.
Well, I have I guess I say I still have 5 children, but I lost my youngest daughter, which was really the toughest thing. You can't get any tougher than that. That's just a fact. And then I have 3 more girls, and they've been involved in the church since they were born. And they got married here, the ones that got married. My son got married here, and they've been active in the church ever since now. One of my daughters lives in Texas, but she comes in, and we fill up a back row of the church when we're all here. And that's where we always sit, over in that corner, back row. And that was my family, and of course, been blessed to have 2 wives. And Barbara is the best thing that it could happen to anybody. I tell her I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her, and I probably wouldn't.
Yeah. How many grandkids?
Oh gosh. Well, I guess about 10 or 12. I can't keep up with them. They keep coming.
Well,
I got a couple of 3 great grandkids.
I was about to say, they're working on great grandkids now, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's great. And your granddaughter was just elected a deacon.
Deacon. And of course, I was a deacon, I don't know how many times. And Barbara was a deacon. Now, when Betsy was alive, the women weren't allowed to be deacons. And but if we ever had a minister of music, they called it that then. They didn't have what Ashley and Tim do. It's just a minister of music. She would fill in sometimes for a month or 6 months, and because that was her training, and that's what she did when we got married. And but she played the organ or do everything that a minister of music, and she could sing like a bird. And one of the things that, as long as she went to church here, she sang "Sweet Little Jesus Boy" until she couldn't sing anymore. And thing now, back then, she sang it in the dialect of the way it was. You've done so you just slow. And that, that I don't guess you could get away with that now, but it was looked forward to by all the church. And Barbara's a soloist, but I can't get her to do a solo. She did one, and it was great.
Yeah.
But you get old, you feel like you can't do, but she could. No.
So we still do "Sweet Little Jesus Boy" on Christmas Eve.
When when Betsy couldn't do it anymore, I guess Alan may have been the preacher. He said we need somebody to carry on the tradition. And Keith Geiser's daughter, who was probably in her early teens, I don't know how long, but I picked her because she was so young, and she's still doing it. And it touches my heart. Brings tears to my eyes every Sunday that she does it.
What is it? So talk a little more. What does it mean to you when you hear that?
It means everything. I can't, of course, as you get older, you get teary-eyed at a lot of things, but it means, I don't know about the other people in the church, but it means so much to me.
Yeah.
And music is a big, big part of what I like in church. I like the early service music better, but if we only had that, we'd probably lose half our members. But the ones that are there really enjoy that kind of music, and that's great. And I love the solos and the choir too. And but that's a big part of the service.
So tell me a little bit. I know you have had all kinds of jobs in your life, but I'm not sure that everybody knows all the different kind of jobs that you've had. So what kind of hats have you worn in the different careers you've had?
Yeah. I was going to say painting wasn't my career. I did that when my dad was contracted. But I started out teaching school and taught for 4 years, and that's a whole new story, but I quit. And they tried to get me to come back after some things, and I went into the insurance business for 2 years, and I hated that. I had to go around knocking on doors, and then I went back to the school business, and I finished with 30 years in the school system as teacher, principal. That was the things that I did as principal more than anything. Elementary, middle school, and high school principal through the years. And then when I retired on December the 31st, 1989, on January the 1st, 1990, I became county judge, and for 29 years, 7 terms, and they had one 5-year term, so 29 years. And now helping my son mow yards in the summer, but that's not a career.
Keeps you busy though.
I love it. I love getting out and doing it. I do the mowing, he does the weed eating.
So what did you, when you look back and think about your teaching specifically, your career in education, what did you learn from your time doing that?
I loved it, and would have gone on forever. And I coached. I don't know that I said that. I coached several years, and I coached the high school baseball team for the first 4 years that I was there, and we won our conference 2 years in a row. And then I was coaching. When I came back, I was assistant basketball coach. I wanted to be a high school basketball coach, and the coach retired and took another job, and they elected, I got the job as high school coach, and I've got the record up there. Only coached 1 year, and the most wins in the history of the school. So proud of that. And one thing that's been a big part of my life is officiating. I officiated basketball and football over a period of 52 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and I did good. Yeah, I worked the national championship game in the NAIA one time, and worked 11 state high school tournament games, and so traveled about 5 or 6 different states, called Division I. It was big part of my life, and
that kept you hopping.
I loved it.
Yeah.
And particularly basketball, because you was calling 2 or 3 games a week. Football, Friday and Saturday, Friday high school and Saturday college. But it was a big part of my life.
Well, what about county judge, county executive? It's 29 years doing that. What did you learn? What are you most proud of from that time?
I was, because of my position, but we had good budget because of Toyota, and you could do things that needed. But people out in the county, the biggest thing that they needed when I took over as county judge, the people in the county didn't have city water, and they had to haul water and go down and get a big tank of water and haul it for a week or whatever. And that was the first thing I said, we're going to put water lines all over Scott County. It took 10 years and probably $15 million, but we did it. It's hard by the yard and a cinch by the inch, and we got it done. And we had a volunteer fire department, and now, while I was there, and I did it, but I was blessed that we had the revenue to do it. And we've got one of the biggest fire departments for a county and state. And those are things you're proud of. But I guess the things that I was able to be involved in too, and having coached and been in sports, was all of the parks and things that happened while I've been here. I don't want to take credit for them, but I happen to be the county judge. And we built a girls' softball field and built a building for them to dress in and restrooms. We bought and built the park at Great Crossings. There's 4 baseball fields and just a lot, and they're expanding that right now. Big things that was able to do. Bought the soccer field up on Lyle Road. So a lot of things, and I was blessed to be county judge when we were able to do that. And the new county judge is continuing to do it. So I don't want to brag on myself. I just proud to be able to part of it.
Sure, of course. Who are your heroes?
My dad. Anybody would say, but it is true. When he died in 1980, he took me everywhere he went, everywhere. I would go fishing, and I was too young to even fish, be in the boat, and we'd go to Robinson's Dam when I was a little older, and he would go out and wade below, and set me on the end of the dam, and I'd fish, and we caught our bait. If I'd get tired of fishing, I'd throw the bait away and say, we got to go home. But those are memories. But everything, we used to go to the wrestling matches, and it was 4 men and 1 little boy. And on Thursday night at Woodland Auditorium, and back up, he died in 1980, and I had all these memories. I'd sometimes just dream about him. And I didn't know my counselor when I was in high school. I was telling her about it one day, what I was dreaming, and she said, "What'd you think?" And I thought, I didn't want to wake up.
Yeah.
But anyway, I get kind of emotional talking about these things. But I decided about 4 or 5 years later, all the memories, I started writing a column for the newspaper, and it started out about fishing. And I had plenty of stories, but after 4 or 5 years, I ran out of stories. And so I started writing human interest stories. And so I wrote for the paper for once a week for 40 years. And didn't get paid, just did it. And I said it probably wasn't worth anything, but and then I put a couple of them in a book. And the last bunch, I had 250 books that I bought to give away, and I've given all of them away, but maybe a dozen.
Yeah.
And, but that was a big part of my life. And it's funny how you can think of all these things to write about, but I got a lot of them from sermons that I heard and statements they make, and it's hard to think about it something. I know one Sunday they sang, "Shall We Gather by the River?" That's a good thing. I want to go to heaven, but I'm not worried about them golden streets and things. I want to get there by that Jordan River where we can catch some fish. And I want to meet Peter because he caught more fish than he could get in the boat. So that was the kind of things that you remember to write about. And just things I tell you. And I know Ken was preaching, I believe it was Ken one Sunday, and he was talking about Bonnie and Clyde, and they were getting shot, And Bonnie said to Clyde, "You told us we were going places, and all we were doing was going." And this is an article, and there's things like that. But I loved it, and after my daughter passed away, even before, she had depression real bad, and that's a story itself. If you ever read my book, you'll see it. Now, I wrote a lot about depression, and I had lots of people, not lots of people, but some people come by. In fact, one of the preachers here at the church was having a struggle, and he came by to talk to me, and because about depression. Now, he wouldn't have known he had depression. Yeah. And I had another guy from the college that came by and was talking and telling me, I said, "Billy, you got depression, do you know that?" And he said, "Yeah, I know it." And I said, "You call me anytime you want to." And he says, after that, he said, "I keep your phone number beside my bed."
Yeah. When you look back at your life, what are the things that you are proudest of?
Being a daddy. Yeah, I guess so. But there's a lot of things that you can say be proud of. Being a Christian, naturally, is the most important thing. But things that you're proud of is raising a family. And the thing that I'm saddest of is losing my daughter. and she's the smartest kid you ever saw. Had never made a B in her life. Had a master's degree. #1 on the tennis team at Georgetown College. But something happened in her life that she couldn't get rid of. And that PTSD, you know, and you hear about it, but it's real. And it was the saddest thing, and I guess the happiest thing is burying two people. I said, whatever I do, turn my phone off.
We had the same thought. We had the same discussion. So the
I meant to turn it off.
That's okay. The happiest thing.
The happiest things, I guess, would be being able to get married twice. Yeah. And it's wonderful. I call her. She calls me Betsy half the time. I call her Cotton. You know, that we've got a great relationship, and she had a wonderful marriage, and I did too. But meeting Barbara has really changed my life, because I remember when I was sitting at home after Betsy died, and Allison called me one night, and, Daddy, what are you doing? I said, just sitting here waiting to get dark so I can go to bed. And it's lonely.
Well, you were baptized in, 46, 47, 48, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's you've been a Christian for a long time.
Well, I think all my life.
Yeah.
Before I was baptized, I was, but being baptized was made it real, you know.
Sure. So who is Jesus to you?
Well, he's my Savior. He is everything, you know, and it's funny. I go to sleep at night praying. And I pray for you, and Ashley, and Tim, and myself, and my family. But it goes back when I wasn't a Christian. We lived, there was 7 of us, 4 children. My mother and daddy and grandmother lived in a little 4-room house on 2nd Street. And every night she'd put me to bed, and my grandmother, and now lay me down to sleep, pray the Lord. That was every night. So as long as I guess I was big enough to talk, I repeated it, and that's all I've ever known. And we didn't have a car when I was little, and when I was real young, walking, I went to Nazarene Church because it was just a couple blocks away. But I've been here at Georgetown Baptist. Well, I said I was baptized here when I was 11 or 12 years old, whatever I was in the 5th grade. And I had been going, of course, before that. I didn't. So, but my parents went here, sat over in the corner, right by that other door, every Sunday, never missed. Now, Daddy did miss once in a while when fishing was good, but it was every Sunday they were as regular as could be, and it's all, you know, it's all I know.
Yeah. You've seen a lot in 89 years. You've had to say goodbye to a lot of people.
Oh, well.
In 89 years. Are you scared to die?
No, sometimes I look forward to it.
Why is that?
Well, I just, life's tough sometimes. And I've got something coming up Wednesday that scares me to death. My son's going to be cut open heart surgery. And I just, scares me that about him, you know, not about myself. But I'm not afraid of dying. I pray that every night, you know. Lord knows I should have died 20 years ago. And so I've got no regrets. And, but yeah, my family, when I was 45 and 50 years old, I thought if I can make it to 72, I've made it. And here I am, 89, and feel good.
Yeah.
Now, my health's not as good as I'd like it, but when you get this age, it's not.
When years from now, when your family, when church members, when friends are telling stories about you after you've gone on to glory, what do you want the legacy of George Lusby, the memory, and what would you like that to be?
That's a tough question because it sounds like he's bragging.
Oh, sure, I hear, but
I've done quite a few funerals from friends, and the thing that I did one for a young boy, and I didn't know him, but I talked to his parents. My daughter Tammy's good at things. This woman that she worked with, they were tenant farmers, this lady, and who are going to get to do the funeral? And as Tammy says, my daddy will do it. But I talked to them and found out things about him, and at the grave, and maybe you could just say that I said he was a good boy. And you say he was a good man, that says it all, I think. You might say he was the best fisherman in Scott County too.
What are the best lessons now? If you did your column for years about fishing, so you probably have a whole chest of these. But what are the best lessons you learned from fishing?
Learned about nature, God, and one of my articles that I wrote, there was a place called the Cat Hole. The holes were fishing places in the creek, where the water was deeper. And there was a nest of wood ducks, a beautiful duck. And in the spring, they would be there. And they'd go. But the next spring, I don't know whether it's their kids or who, every spring they would be back. And I wrote one about that and about, you know what a killdeer is? That's a bird. And they hang out around the water. And I would chase them when I was little, and they had a broken wing. But when they got away from where they were, their nest, they flew away. How did they know to do that? And there was one hole where we fished. When the water would get up, there was an eddy, a flat place. And when the water would get up, the fish would come up in that eddy. And how'd they know where that eddy was? Those are things. And something funny, this probably won't put on there, but Joey one Sunday went fishing, and when I got home, now you had to go back through a field to get to this place, and he had a note, Daddy, get down here to Robson's Dam, the fish are really biting. And I came home from church and I saw that note, and I grabbed me a sandwich and took off down there, and when I got close to the creek, he was sitting up under a tree. Now, what in the world is happening? And I said, Joey, what are you doing up here? And he said, well, Daddy, I was afraid I'd catch them all, and I wanted you to get some. That's a true story. But, they wouldn't, at that eddy, they wouldn't, you might catch 10 or 15, and then they'd be off.
Yeah.
But nature and fishing and going out on the creek with your dad and those things, that shaped my life more than anything.
Well, to be able to be fishing with your dad, and then to share that with your son, that has to be a very special connection.
And when I got where I was working and couldn't, as an adult, and my dad would take Joey with him. And this is an interesting story. My dad's name was Brian. And Daddy took Joey just like he did me. And when Brian was, my granddaughter was born, Joey said, I'm gonna name her Brian. And I said, then you can't do that. That's a boy's name. Well, I'm going to, and he did, and so she's been stuck with Brian all her life. And we're proud of that, but it is a boy's name. And Joey thought, there's so many funny stories, and I'm telling them because I know you can't put them on there. But I delivered papers when I started in the 6th grade, so I was 12 years old then, until I graduated from high school. And my grandmother would get me up every morning. I slept on the back porch, but it was boarded in. In the winter, the covers would freeze to the wall because there wasn't any insulation. That's how cold it was. And I tell you all this because it's leading somewhere. And one day we was coming back from church, and Sam was with me, Joey's little boy. And I'd taken him home from church, and it was cold as it is out there. And I was telling him about how it was when I was delivering papers, and sometimes my eyelashes would get a little ice on them, which it would. And because 0 weather, and you went summer, winter, it didn't matter. And he listened for a while, and he said, "Granddaddy, that's pretty dumb, wasn't it?" Well, I guess it was. But I made $1 a day. Now, back in the 40s and 50s, we're talking a whole lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't broke. I had $7 a week.
You worked for it, though.
I worked for it. I got up at 5:30, picked up my papers at 6, got done at 7, went home, come to school 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Rain or shine, cold or hot.
I remember you saying to me, you thought you're growing up, you didn't have much, but you were rich. Is that something?
I wrote it. Keep going back. I said I was the richest kid in town. You couldn't have had any better life than I had. There's no way. No kid ever grew up that had the life that I had. Fishing, playing ball. I played high school ball, 1 year college football, but everything. Like going with my dad. Some woman wrote me a letter when I was writing about him. She said, "Y'all were joined at the hip, weren't you?" And that was the richest kid in town. And I believe that. We lived on 2nd Street, which then 200 yards down the street, and you was out in the county. And we'd fish down there and go rabbit hunting, and had a pond down there we swam in. And the hogs were one end and we were at the other in the summer. But you couldn't. And we had, it was a neighborhood. And you couldn't possibly have a kid enjoy life more than I did. And pitched horseshoes. Had a blacksmith across the street. A blacksmith now, and he'd shoot horses. And he'd take the old shoes off, and we'd get them and use them, pitch horseshoes with. Yeah, just unbelievable. What a good life we had.
What are your hopes and prayers for your grandkids, great grandkids, and all of the people here who come behind you?
Well, they all are blessed. They're all Christians. That'd be the first thing you'd hope for. And good health, and be active and do for others. And they do. I couldn't ask for more. Yeah. And all of them have been in an occupation that they made a difference. And Allison, of course, was a guidance counselor and taught, and Joey's a firefighter, and Tammy worked at the newspaper and managed people. Daughter in Texas did. Samantha taught, I guess it would be kindergarten when she was alive. So they've done well. Yeah. Can't ask for more. And Betsy was a teacher, and Barbara was, she worked in the school system. So been blessed all the way around.
Let me make sure. I think that's it. We got what we needed. Anything else you want to share?
No, I'm glad to do it. I'm honored to do it. And
well, we're so thankful for you taking the time, and we're more thankful just for you and who you are. So you're a gift to us.
I'm blessed. That's all right.